Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to discuss the question, are you thinking about buying a Schlage Primus key blank and wondering if it will work? The short answer is it probably will not work, and this video is to discuss why. This video is to discuss probably why you're at this juncture trying to get your hands on a Primus key blank, and not understanding why it's so difficult to get a Primus key blank. Well, there's several and many very good reasons for that. But let's talk about why your pursuit of getting one will probably end up being just a exercise in learning more about the key system, but ultimately not yielding you the key blank that you need. Let's talk about that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So the Schlage Primus key blank is it is certainly a sibling to the ASA key blank as well. ASA and Primus were patented by the same person, and when you look at a Schlage Primus key blank, it says Primus on it. Okay, yours may look a little bit different. It says Schlage on it. No problem. When you look at this, it looks like just a typical Schlage key. Except when you look at Primus, that's not on any typical key. But the issue is, when you look at that side, it looks pretty common. But the trick is, when you look at this side, it's a different beast, a different animal. It has those side bit millings on that. Just to discuss the term milling that I just used, cylinder plugs, the thing that you stick the key into, that's broached. They'll take a piece of material, architectural material, and they will quite forcefully shove tooling through there, and it will broach or create the female or the negative, perhaps, of the two parts that go together. A key blank is milled, so they're going to mill the key blank out of solid material so that it has the exact shape necessary for whatever the key blank is. Primus and ASA were patented by the same person mid to late 1980s. I first saw Primus in probably 1991, and it certainly came out before that. The type of Schlage client we were was not the target client for Schlage to call on first when it came to restricted key systems and patented and restricted key systems, and this is most certainly what that is. Up until that time, and I am no Schlage historian, membership in ALOA, A-L-O-A, will certainly, if you're a locksmith, will certainly, you don't have to be a locksmith to be a member of ALOA, but will certainly put you in the company of those people that are absolutely extremely knowledgeable about the history of Schlage key systems and all other manufacturers. But Schlage always had restricted keyways, but they were always just a particular milling, and you couldn't just go to a regular hardware shop and get one. You had to do a little extra work. And I don't know how many there were, but there's probably 20 of them would be my guess, something in that range. So they had restricted key blanks, but the issue with that is it always took just one shear line to operate it, meaning when you look at a key and it's cut, and you put the key in the cylinder, and wherever the blockage is, or what we would call pin tumblers, there are different pin tumblers. There's wafer tumbler, there's lever tumbler, and pin tumbler. Three very different technologies of lock sets. Cylindrical locks like this, which existed in the mid-19th century. In fact, it was Linus Yale Jr. who patented the first pin tumbler cylinder. It's said that his inspiration was a 4,000-year-old Egyptian lock that basically had big round blocks of wood that looked like pins, or what some people would just call the tumblers. They're tumblers. They're just pin tumblers. That's the type they are. So in those original systems, you would only have one shear line to satisfy. You put the key in, if it was cut right, those blockages or tumblers would be where they needed to be to allow the key to turn. Well, you introduce a Primus or an ASA or so many other manufacturers, you're introducing an additional shear line, an additional line within the cylinder construction that must be satisfied in order for it to turn. What happens with folks that buy, and this is important, what happens with folks that will see on our website a Schlage 35-157, a CP, a Schlage C Primus key blank, and say, oh my gosh, that's what I need. My key blank says C or CP on it. Those two letters that it says, they say EP. This is a Schlage Classic E keyway in the sense that this will go in any Schlage E keyway, but it's a P version, it's a Primus version. So a customer will say, yep, I have an E keyway, and it's Primus, and that's the key blank I need. And someone will order it, and they'll order 5 of them, and they'll cut all 5 of them, and they'll call us up and say, well, your key blank doesn't work. Okay. Does it go in the cylinder? Yeah, it goes in the cylinder, okay, but it doesn't turn. It's not our key blank. Here's the reason why. Here's the reason why what you're looking for probably won't work. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So we just spoke about 2 shear lines. It's the second additional shear line on the side bit milling is what it's called. Now, what fits into the side bit milling are what we would call finger pins. Those finger pins come in different lengths. They're not really different lengths, but they're different lengths for all intents and purposes. They're physically the same, but the way in which they're milled would make you think, you could say they're different lengths, I suppose. But then, so you've got different lengths, but then you have right, center, and left. So the way that the side bit milling is, these V's, let's think about an imaginary center to center of cuts on a key. That's a fixed dimension. The distance from the center of one cut to the center of the second cut, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, whatever you have, that will always be the same. In side bit milling and Primus, they're not the same because they can be biased away from the center line to the left or centered, or away from the center line to the right. So now, this finger pin not only has to be the right height, but it has to be oriented in the correct position. So multiple heights and 3 different orientations. So those finger pins, as the key goes in, the finger pin, it rides in those grooves, and it's going up, and it's turning at the same time. And that has to be in the absolute perfect Y and X relationship to what the cylinder needs in order for it to work. So, Schlage doesn't control this milling on a C or an E keyway, or F, EF, CE, G, FG, all 7 of the classic keyways. How they control the systems, though, is with unique side bit millings. So Schlage has multiple levels of side bit millings. Level 1 is this, the one that you can buy, that there's no problem me selling it to you. But unless the system that you want a Primus key blank for was developed or installed as level 1, meaning the uncontrolled, generic, everyone's going to get that level, meaning the exact depth and orientation of the cuts, it's not going to work. You can faithfully duplicate the cuts up here. Perfect. You can take a caliper and measure it. Perfect. But you stick that key in there and it does not turn. It's not because of the cuts here. It's because of the side bit milling here. Now, most common when people call and say, or email, it's usually not a phone call. It's usually live chat or an email. Oh, I need 10 of these blanks. Okay, well, sometimes the person doesn't know what they're dealing with, meaning they just lack the information. Oh, that's a restricted keyway. When someone chose, or when people chose to have that installed on the property, they did so because they absolutely want to control, and they absolutely want to control who can get key blanks. Now, anyone can cut a key. You could take a file and a caliper and cut a key. But if you can't get the key blank to start with, you won't ever create a key that operates the cylinder. So they control the supply of the key blanks. So if you are at a facility and it has Primus, and it's not level 1, someone intentionally developed that system, installed that system, specified it, ordered it, and paid the huge upcharge for protection and control over the key blanks. So when people contact us and say, oh, I need a Schlage Primus key blank, why do you need it? Well, that's what my key blank says. Okay, so let's investigate why you're trying to duplicate what is most likely a protected keyway. So people either don't know what it is, and then we educate them, and then it's all too much information, and they just give up. You don't have to give up, because it could be that you are in a facility where all we have to do is get the proper documentation from the proper department and order the key blanks in the proper multiple, and there's no problem selling key blanks to that original client. But the trouble is, you have to produce paperwork. The factory's going to check the paperwork, and they're going to verify that information is accurate based on the information provided at the time the order was placed and the system was installed. And if that information doesn't match up, they will disallow the order. They won't fulfill and ship it. So there's times when people don't know what it is. There are times when people have an idea that it's a problem getting this, but they're going to try anyway. An example of that is you've got a condo building that it's a timeshare, you're there 2 weeks a year, and every time you check in, they give you this Primus key blank. Well, that's to the pool. And you want to give Uncle Joe a key to the pool so that when you're not at the timeshare, he can kind of go in and use the pool. Turns out they installed a restricted key system to prevent Uncle Joe from getting that key. And when you go to the timeshare people and the management office and say, I want to buy an extra key, no, we don't allow that. 1 key, 2 keys, whatever the policy is. Or the other scenario, I lost my key. They've heard that before. And they'll say, that's no problem. We understand that you've lost the key. The new one's $150. And a lot of people will call us and say, oh, I'm not paying $150 for a key blank. That's X dollars on your website. I can go to my locksmith. He said he'll cut it. Right. The problem is their side bit milling is not level 1. And that's where that's going to be controlled. Now, to take the side bit milling even further, there's multiple levels. Level 1, level 1 plus, level 2, 3, and 4, I think. We'll look at paperwork in a minute. And what's really interesting about the side bit milling is you can control the keyway. The keyway is not only the milling profile with a Primus or an ASA or many others, but it's the combination of both the milling profile and the profile of the side bit cuts. If either of them isn't correct, the key will either not enter and therefore not work, or it will enter and not turn, which means it doesn't work. So as you escalate up the levels, the more restrictive that side bit milling is according to the way that the client is categorized. So you could do level 1 plus, and level 1 plus might be a specific geographic area. It might be one town of one city, or it might be a group of states. Who knows what it is? I don't recall. But it's restrictive in some sense. It's restricted geographically, perhaps, or it might be by postal code or area code, something like that. But it's also not something that you can buy without providing what's called a letter of authorization. The letter of authorization is the document that the factory gets, that they review that information that you've provided them through your distributor, and they'll either proceed with the order or they'll disallow it. If the information doesn't match, it's not happening. Another way that they use the side bit milling in a unique fashion is to associate a keyway, and remember a keyway is the milling and the side bit cutting, the specific association of the two. They have to be identical, the same, and a locksmith will then own that keyway, so that if you go to the Acme Lock Company in XYZ Anytown, USA, and you get restricted key cylinders and keys from them, you're not going to go anywhere else and get those duplicated. You're going to go back to that lock shop. And the reason that the factory wants to do that is, well, they want to support their installed locksmith business. We, from another company, not Schlage, have our own keyway in a restricted, protected key system that allows the factory to work with an authorized distributor to facilitate the delivery of goods of their facilitate the delivery of their manufactured products to market. So we own that keyway in the sense that if you took your key if you took this Primus key, if the keyway is owned by locksmith, Acme Locksmith in Anytown, USA, and you go to another locksmith, he'll say, yeah, I can cut the key, but I can't get the key blank with the side bit milling. And that's how it's restricted. You can escalate that to all the way up to a situation where you have a very sensitive client, like maybe a defense contractor for the military, they may own their own keyway. So Schlage will say to, I won't even say a name because I don't know if they have that system or not, but any, think of, in fiction, think of Area 51. Okay, let's say Area 51's a real place and they do secret back office R&D there. An Area 51 or Sandia National Lab. That's everyone. Well, people have heard of Sandia National Lab. They may. I don't know if Sandia does, but they could own their own keyway, and that would be an appropriate instance where that side bit milling is owned by the end user. No one else can get the key blanks other than the end user. Now, a client like that will have their own locksmiths on staff. So if you're seeing this video, it's quite likely that you see it, I don't know what it is, but I need it, probably can't get it, all the way to it's on a project and you need to order some, and it could be that we can't order it because the end user, the subcontractors, general contractor, prime contractor person, end user owns that keyway. Or you just want to give Uncle Joe a key and your association wants $150. In most instances it doesn't work where I can provide you the key blank. Let's switch to the view and let's take a closer look at some support. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so patent US 4756177A, lock and key blade. Let's take a look. Bo Wyden, yeah, that might have been the guy who patented this. And ASA. You could search probably patents under this name. But here it is, I think. Yeah, beautiful. Yep, this is it, side bit milling. Okay, so that's the L pin right there that you're contending with. So that L pin, when we were talking about sizes, this is called the sidebar. The sidebar has to nestle inside of the finger pin, but the gate that's cut into the side pin has to be in the right orientation, left, center, right, and the correct height as well. And that's the whole trick. Here are the finger pins. This isn't what they look like today. This is what they looked like in the, well, whenever this was patented, 1988. So there you go. But it's still very similar to what this actually is. And here's a great image of the side bit milling. Yeah, that is just so great. They're referring to how the cuts can be different. This might be a right and a left together. Don't quote me. I've forgotten more about Schlage. But the center on these cuts is not uniform, and that's what's odd. Well, that's what makes it very interesting. Okay, really, really fascinating stuff. Okay, so let's hop into the Schlage page within our website. We can search for any item that's Schlage, get to the manufacturer's page here, more from Schlage, and then we can control, it's okay, here's Schlage. Now we can control F for Primus, and we can find the Primus service manual. Now the Primus service manual is going to allow you a deep dive into what the technology is. Well, this is going to show us Everest, Primus XP, Everest Primus. The platforms by which this Primus original side bit milling has evolved over the years and decades. But the concepts are still the same. If you really want to deep dive into what the side bit milling is from Schlage, I recommend you read this service manual cover to cover. It will give you everything that Schlage is going to publish about it. They don't publish everything, obviously, and what I mean by that is they don't publish what the side bit millings are, in the sense of telling you who is what. But what you can do is you can take note, and you can learn what the system is, how this finger pin works. So let's go back to here, and that's what it looks like today. The finger pins that are here don't have that single hole. They're now, I don't know if the proper term is gate, but it's a ward cut, I suppose. I think it would be fair to call it a ward cut. And I want to scroll through and show you this larger picture of what it looks like. And recall the patent. It looked like this. And show you how the finger pins are rotated. These black areas are solid. The white areas are cut out. You can see that if you try to insert this pin, I guess this is a left, into the center or the right position, while it will work and go up and down, when the finger resides and rests as it's shown here, it will be oriented around its vertical axis of pivot in the wrong direction. And while the gate cuts or the ward cuts are at the proper height, they're not rotated correctly for the sidebar to nestle into these side pins. So now you should be able to understand that any side bit milling that is not the exact side bit milling of your Primus key is never going to work, even though you faithfully duplicate the top of the key blank. You can cut these on any machine. Okay, that's why. A little deeper dive will show us what it looks like when it's satisfied, when the pins are at the right height and right axial orientation. That sidebar, which is governed by two springs, when you rotate the plug, will collapse into the finger pins and allow you to rotate that. Locked or improper key inserted, proper key inserted and unlocked. Now we can scroll through and get to where we can look at finger pins. This is called depth and spacing data. That's neat. Neat to know. This page gives you, page 13, gives you a deep dive on what the finger pins are all about, how to read them. Schlage is literally giving you the manual on how to decode what you have. And the reason that they give that to you is it doesn't matter if they give you the formula for decoding it, because you can't get the key blank. What we talked about initially. If you're not authorized to get the key blank, it doesn't matter that you know how it works. If you can't duplicate the key because you don't have the physical key blank, then the knowledge is good to have, but it doesn't get you a copy for Uncle Joe. Great example of showing what that looks like. And you can see here, this is important. In this situation, a key is inserted into the plug with the proper side bit milling for the finger pins that are loaded into it. All those notches are aligned. But when you go over here, they show where they're not aligned. Improper height and improper rotation, axial rotation. This is why when you buy a 35157 Schlage Primus key blank from us and your locksmith cuts the top of it and you've wasted now $15 a key blank, it still doesn't work. It's because of this exact right here. Now, if someone could take the Primus cylinder apart and simply remove these pins, it would work. Of course, hobbling your very expensive restricted key system in that way relegates it to the same security technology that's existed since before World War II. Well, actually, before the Civil War. So really neat page there in terms of them telling us how it's done. And then the rest of this manual talks about the levels. Level 1, Level 1 Plus, 2, 3, and 4. End user exclusive. Exclusivity is based on either a time zone or nationwide basis, depending on end user commitment. So if an end user, like the secretive national laboratory, says we want to own this keyway and we're going to make a financial commitment, they'll own the keyway. Then of course XP you're going to have levels 7, 8, and 9, and it goes even further from there. Suffice it to say, Schlage has the systems in place to sell you a proper restricted key system. What I like about this manual is it shows you your side bit milling. So this is just what we would call open. These are open keyways. If you have a Primus box and it says sequence 1001 on it, you have an open keyway. You've got this side bit milling. Those are the finger pins that you would load in a CP keyway. Come down to our EP keyway, which is the key blank that I had earlier. That's a 1006 sequence. That's the side bit cutter. Again, they're not only telling you how it works, but they're telling you the finger pins that need to be loaded. And then, of course, finally, if you can't get the key blank, none of that information really does you much good, because you still can't get Uncle Joe a key blank, or a cut key. Rest of the manual is really, really handy for this, in terms of knowledge. If you're curious, this is the governing document. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Regarding the links to ads that you might see in this video, we do apologize for any interruption to a smooth viewing experience. And hopefully the ads that are being presented to you are related to the base product. And if there is something, feel free to click on those and perhaps consider taking a look at what that other advertiser is promoting. Let's get back to the video. So I always find it extremely fascinating to learn about these key systems, and frankly I've learned about most of them, and that are at least North American or American American lock manufacturers and their key systems, whether it be, of course, Medico, whether it be Sargent or Corbin Russwin or Yale or Schlage or Arrow, etc. If you study the science of locksmithing, you'll expose yourself to all of those manufacturers and you'll see how they specifically do it. But if you go deeper than that and you research or study the history of lockmaking, you're going to see a lot of these evolutionary steps are just built on some really smart person's idea from decades ago. Okay, and that's just the bottom line. The technology of what we have in today's standard is adding an ingenious idea on top of an existing ingenious idea, like the jump from Medico 3 to Medico 4. They've added something to it that is brilliant in the sense that it allows them to be backwards compatible, but also maintain an ability to go to their installed client base and say, we can keep you under patent protection, is what the bottom line is there. And if you dig even deeper or further into the science of lockmaking, you'll look at, the pin tumbler cylinder when it was invented by Linus Yale Jr. and how he was influenced. Locks that were used in bank or safe applications. Back in the 18th century, people didn't have a lot of valuables to lock up, but the time during the Revolutionary War, which is not, lockmaking isn't American-centric. The thunderclaps were occurring in Great Britain, in England. So many fascinating stories about that stuff. And elsewhere. There's a really cool Japanese lock. There's a super cool Scandinavian designs that are the Abloy is incredibly unique. Fichet is a French manufacturer, a brilliant lock. It's just ridiculous how smart people are at inventing this stuff. What's nice about the Primus is that it's elegant in its relative simplicity. It gives you the security of what you need. It's run by a top-grade lock manufacturer, backed by experts in the field at every level, and worth the initial investment. But that's the heart of the matter. It's the initial investment. That's why you can't just go get a key cut, because somebody at the point of origin said, I want to prevent people from going around giving keys out to people, and that's why you're probably not going to have success getting a key blank. Now, having said all of that, if you are the authorized person for the system, by all means we can supply you with key blanks, cylinders, locksmithing services, A to Z, that what you will need to support your system in those instances where it's not owned by a locksmith or owned by an end user. So reach out to us. We're happy to run the information down. But if you're not familiar with patented restricted key systems, then it's likely that you're going through just an academic exercise. Any questions on Primus or any other Schlage product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.